I just want to spend a few minutes talking about an initiative that we've catalyzed here at the State Department called the Vision for Adapted Crops and Soils. We generally refer to it by the English acronym, which is VAX. I think we all know that there are more than 700 million people on Earth, maybe even more than 800, that are food insecure, and a couple of 100 million of those literally don't know where the next meal is going to come from. Agri-food systems are quite complicated. On one end, they involve inputs to farming, seeds, fertilizer, et cetera, and on the other end, process and delivery of food. And so I suppose you could say that working at any point along that spectrum and trying to improve any aspect of that would be somehow contributing to food security. But the question is, are all of our actions equal in impact? And at the State Department, about a year ago, we decided we would try to be more strategic and more impactful. Of course, any plan that you come up with is based inevitably on certain facts and certain assumptions. Let me be explicit about those facts and assumptions in the case of VAX. We have a lot of food insecurity in Africa, and looking forward, we think it's going to be even greater. The country that has the most food insecure people on Earth is the Democratic Republic of Congo. So we decided to focus on Africa. And we made an assumption about food security there. And the assumption was that you have to have fertile soils and you have to have adapted crops in order to have food security. Or if you want to turn the coin to the other side, infertile soils and poorly adapted crops will never give you sustainable food security. So in terms of making our approach fact-based and science-based, we also assume that for the soils portion of that countries and farmers need the kind of information that would underpin rational decisions about what to plant and where to plant and how to manage a farmer's fields. And on the crop side, our assumption was that providing better, more nutritious, better adapted crop varieties were something that farmers would like and would adopt. I want to talk just a couple of minutes, a minute or two, about the crop side because, Jaron, that's work that you've been quite involved with recently. If you really want to make quantum improvements in agricultural systems and particularly in nutrition, I think the place to start is with nutrition, is to ask yourself the question, well, what are the crops? What's the constellation of crops that can supply the best nutrition going forward? And that's a pretty complicated question to try to answer. You have to not just look at the nutrient content of a particular crop, but you have to look at the productivity of that crop and who is that crop aimed for? Is it particularly relevant for women and children, for example, or elderly people or people with high energy needs? And is it available all year round because you want to supply nutrition all year round? And so that's the first step that we've taken. We have a 3-step process. It's co-sponsored by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN and the African Union. And our first step was really to look at and figure out what are the crops that have the most potential for adding to nutrition in Africa. And we focused primarily on traditional and indigenous crops there. Why? Because they've received massive underinvestment in the past, and we think that's where the greatest benefit to cost ratio and the greatest improvements can be made. But it's not enough, of course, to understand which are the most nutritious crops. You also have to figure out, well, which of that group are going to prosper under climate change. And that brings in not just climate modeling, but that brings in trying to figure out how those particular crops are going to respond to climate change. So we've put together groups of climate modelers with nutritionists, with plant breeders and such to try to address these kinds of issues. And at the same time, we've formulated we've worked with the International Fund for Agricultural Development in Rome to set up a multi-donor funding platform so that we can provide ongoing support for plant improvement for these particular crops. You know, obviously, Jaron, and I'll just take 30 more seconds of your time. Policies and strategies that are based on faulty assumptions or poor data or bad science are going to be bad policies, and they're going to be ineffective strategies. What we've done with the VAX program is to take a group of crops, about 300 traditional and indigenous crops, narrow it down to about 60 that we think can really transform agriculture and food systems in Africa. And now we're looking into how those are going to be affected by climate change. And on the basis of that, we'll have a rational foundation, frankly, for the first time in history, for making impactful crop improvement efforts. So in summary, our vision for adapted crops and soils has brought together a number of scientific communities that don't ordinarily get together to collaborate. That's an initiative that has involved nutritionists and plant breeders and agricultural development folks and climate scientists. And this initiative is one that we think is going to have long-term, large, transformational, I would even say intergenerational impact by providing viable options for farmers and consumers well into the future. So I'll close by saying, Jaron, thank you. You've been very involved in this process. Thank you to Havas AI. And I just learned that Cabby, who's 110 years old now, is even a little bit older than I am. So I wish you another good 110 years. Thank you so much.
Thank you. No, thank you, Karen. You can take as many seconds as you would like. It's always really impressive to hear about VAX, and if it's okay, maybe I'll just ask you one quick follow-up question before we move on to Jen, to our next speaker. Because what I really like that you're so able to touch on, Karen, is the complexity of the process, right? So the complexity of bringing all the technical information together, of bringing these opportunities for climate scientists, soil scientists, plant scientists, and then kind of the political will that's really needed to drive forward change, right? And I feel like in the span of about 7 or 8 months, that is what VAX has been able to do, although I know there's a lot of thinking that's happened behind it for years. But maybe just my very quick question to you is, while we're still very much in the active evidence and advice and research gathering phase, do you think there's 1 or 2 lessons that we can distill from VAX that would help inform kind of future initiatives?
I think, yeah, there are 1 or 2. I think one is that we tend as human beings to respond to the latest emergency, not understanding the historical context of that emergency, and typically not having the commitment to deal with the underlying causes of that emergency. So when I look at food security, one of the things that really impresses me is in this moment, and particularly looking forward to the projections of the impact of climate change on agriculture by 2050, I see the necessity for planning ahead and really taking a longer term view. If we don't do that, the counterfactual is we're going to be in much, much more trouble a few years from now than we are now, and none of us want to be there. I guess the other thing is that we have to realize the power in partnerships, and I will say that I think the initiative that we've started with VAX couldn't have been conceivable years ago. We didn't have the data, the scientific basis for that. We also didn't have the capacity, frankly, to do the kind of plant breeding work that's going to be necessary. We didn't have it in Africa. We do now. And we didn't have certain technologies for plant breeding that we have now. And the final thing is that I think if we keep our eye on the prize, we shouldn't just be thinking about a particular project or initiative, but we should be thinking about changing the very conversation that we have. If there's anything that I hope for from VAX above and beyond adapting some crops and providing more options and improving nutrition in Africa, that would be quite a lot in and of itself. It's that to really do that and to be sustainable going forward, we have to change the conversation and the discourse, and we have to begin talking about what are the fundamental things that we've got to get right. There are a lot of good and worthwhile things to be done in this space to improve food security. A smaller subset of that large number are strategic and necessary things to do, and that's what we're trying to hone in on. And I think the kind of research that you and others are doing are helping us to actually pinpoint what those strategic things are and hopefully to deliver. So thank you.